and I want to thank Lieutenant Red for that rousing introduction. I want to thank Major General John Regney, Commander of the 2nd Air Force, for taking time to join us on this our commemoration. I also want to express my appreciation to Mr. John Bagley, Mayor of Biloxi, for his continued support of Team Keesler. I would be remiss to forget the privilege I have to take part in this remembrance with those military retirees and war veterans that were able to join us this evening. And to all of you, the citizens of the beautiful Gulf Coast, your hospitality is a force multiplier for our mission, and your partnership does not go unappreciated. I am very thankful for this ceremonious time that we have set aside to bring to a close a very special Armed Forces Week. It is particularly appropriate for us to celebrate Armed Forces Day here in the Mississippi Gulf Coast, where there is a large presence of different services represented. We here at Keesler feel a part of the community of Biloxi, and I am very thankful every day for the friendship and support we receive from the local community. We also are thankful for our brothers in arms at the Stennis Naval Reserve Center, the 302nd Army Reserve Post in Gulfport, and the NASA Stennis Center here in Socia. We recently commemorated our 51st anniversary of Armed Forces Day, and in recent weeks we have also marked the 2nd anniversary of the air war in Kosovo, the 2nd anniversary of the terrorist bombings at Khobar Towers, the 51st anniversary of the Korean conflict, and we also celebrated this year the 10th anniversary of our victorious Persian Gulf War. It is easy to see from this litany of anniversaries how turbulent the last half of the 20th century has been, and how essential the generations of American soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen have been to the peace and prosperity we enjoy today. Let us hope and pray on this day of commemoration that our nation will enter a time more peaceful than the last, with fewer reasons to mark sacrifices by our young men and women in uniform. Will Rogers once said, "We can't all be heroes. Some of us have to stand on the curb and wave as our heroes go by." That is the purpose of this evening. Tonight, we have the opportunity to recognize our veterans and our current generation of service members. This is the way it should be, because each of the young men and women in uniform possesses an abundance of profound patriotism, unrelenting courage, and supreme confidence. They are American heroes. In addition to honoring those in uniform, the original Armed Forces Day also reflected the insightful hope of President Harry Truman. He believed America could no longer afford for its military to be divided into three distinct compartments known as the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Instead, he understood that a truly great force could only arise if land, sea, and air forces were unified under one command. Laws unifying the Department of Defense had been passed in 1949, and so President Truman said in his Armed Forces Day proclamation that day marked the first parade of preparedness by the unified forces of land, sea, and air defenses. The theme for that first Armed Forces Day, 51 years ago, was Teamed for Defense. And that is the nature of our forwarding force, even today in this millennium. The lessons we learned from our previous campaigns have proven that a seamless effort of strength are essential for our streamlined military of today. Armed Forces Day also serves to educate America on the role of the military and on the important state-of-the-art but very expensive equipment that the American taxpayers provide for their servicemen and women. This focus increases awareness on the role of the armed forces in our society and the type of commitments they face. This is an extraordinarily important purpose. While our influence is felt around the world and supported by large forward-based military presence, Americans here at home may know less about their armed forces than our foreign neighbors in England, Germany, Korea, Japan, Bosnia, and Kosovo. We are today a force that is 40% smaller than only a decade ago. Base closures, while absolutely essential to the physical well-being of our military, have had one unintended consequence, namely, to reduce close contact between Americans and their military. The end of the draft has produced an extraordinary volunteer force, but it has also ended the primary contact that Americans had with the military. It was not long ago that there were almost no families in America that had not contributed a son or daughter to the armed forces. I'm sure each one of you can find an example of at least one relative in previous generations that fought the battles of the world wars. But today, for many American families, there is no longer a tradition of military service. Indeed, fewer than half of the House of Representatives have served in the military. Sadly, thousands of American high schools are locking our recruiters out because they see the military service as an undesirable choice in comparison to a college admission. As a result, all of the services face declining numbers of recruits. We will, I'm sure, work our way through our current personnel changes, but recruiting problems are just a symptom of a larger issue. The lack of connection between America and her military. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, the great men and women who serve in them, are a national treasure. I speak candidly when I say the troops under my command are a reflection of the great strength of America, and they leave Keesler with a pressing task ahead, to enable America to be great. In fact, our armed forces are so good that many Americans simply assume that they will always be ready when the call comes. Whether that call is to drop bombs in Serbia or provide humanitarian relief in places such as Albania, Macedonia, Central America, or South Africa. America seems to have forgotten the level of devotion, service, and commitment needed to maintain our military edge that ensures that we can execute America's foreign policy and fight and decisively win America's wars. Building this great volunteer force, which is the envy of the world, is not easy. We must never let unfamiliarity, disinterest, or apathy let that slip away. As we gather here tonight, let us not forget that the pivotal factor in keeping military strength and capability is the quality of the team of men and women who make up our armed forces. They are committed to serving the common good, preserving our way of life, and taking an active role in leading this great nation. They are individuals who have achieved tremendous success through their hard work, dedication to duty, and total commitment to this nation. They want to make a difference in our world, and they are doing that while living in tents, eating rations, and putting service before personal comfort and convenience. The greatest threat to our armed forces is an inability to retain these men and women and to create the next generation of patriots who will defend our country. Finally, on May 29th, I will stand with hundreds of other military servicemen at the Arlington National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. to hear our nation's president eulogize the tens of thousands who are buried at Arlington and at wartime graves throughout this country and indeed throughout the world. We will look out over the acres of headstones, each marked with an American flag, and we will thrill to the sound of martial music and the playing of taps. It will be a solemn day, but perhaps not a sad day. However, each time I visit Arlington, I think of my visit on a beautiful sunny day in 1986, when I went to witness the burial of 9 airmen killed in a mid-air collision off of the coast of Africa. These were young men, perhaps the ages of some of your children. They could have been your classmates. There were 4 young widows there, about the age of my wife. There were a handful of children, most oblivious to the purpose for which we had come, playing in the sun among the horses that were to draw the caisson with their father's remains. On this occasion, the reverence of the honor guard's precision could not take away the enormity of the loss of those young men's lives. As we gather to honor military service, let us not allow ourselves to become entranced with the symbols of reverence, but remember that each one who has given a life for this great nation was someone's father, mother, brother, sister, husband, wife, and friend. And that no patriotic tribute can ever fill the void left behind by an untimely death. As we navigate this new era of military defense, let us also remember that we are venturing into an uncertain future. Threats to the welfare of this great nation have taken on new dimensions and emerged in the most unforeseen sources. Increasingly, we are challenged by regional instability, transnational dangers, asymmetrical threats, cyber terrorism, and the likelihood of both unlikely and unpredictable events. The capabilities that our armed forces provide continue to be an important and integral part of our ability to ensure peace and security for our nation. But that commitment of our military does not come without peril or price. Duty often calls for prolonged periods away from family and home, and missions that can be difficult and dangerous. So it is truly fitting that we pause on this Armed Forces Day to recognize the sacrifices and to honor those whose passion and dedication preserve the blessings of freedom every day. To our veterans and to the young men and women that I work with in uniform, and to the civilians who support them, I say, I am enormously proud of you. Your selfless sacrifice deserves thanks. It has been a privilege for me to join you this evening. I thank those of you in this room and the businesses and organizations that you represent for your strong advocacy of men and women in uniform. And I ask you, I urge you, continue your support, because it is your help that truly does make the difference.
Amen.